10 devastating mistakes to avoid when starting your vegetable garden. What's up guys, thank you for joining in and welcome to another episode of Project Homegrown. So the purpose of today's video is to help you guys out not make the same mistakes that I have made, costing me a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of wasted effort because I didn't implement the right procedures beforehand to help me maintain certain things to make my job a bit easier, and some things that I didn't foresee or didn't know. So what I've done is I've drawn up a list of 10 things that are detrimental progress and the enjoyment of your backyard garden experience. If you are watching this video, you are probably looking to start or have already started your home garden, so it be for vegetables, for food, for beauty. Doesn't really matter. The challenges we face, a lot of them are the same, and you are here to see the mistakes that I have made so that you can avoid them in the future. I've encountered some issues that I could have avoided had I known or done enough research beforehand. So I had to learn the hard way to correct some of these faults, but the problem with learning the hard way is it costs you a lot of time and it costs you a lot of effort. So I'm really hoping to help you guys not make the same mistakes that I have made and save you all of that time by showing you what I did wrong and how I'm going to fix it so that you don't have to go through those trials and errors. As beginner gardeners or prospective beginner gardeners, there's a few pitfalls that I want to help you avoid so that you can get a lot more pleasure from your gardening experience by not making the mistakes that I have made. So the very first thing on that list is, it's gonna sound a bit cliche, but the very first mistake is just not starting. The fact is that if you don't start, nothing is going to happen. You may be walking around with this idea or this project that you want to pursue, and you really want to get into it, but there's things just holding you back. Just not starting is the number one thing that's holding you back. A lot of this, it's not complicated, you can figure it out on your way, but the only way that you are gonna get to the end result is by starting. And remember, the conditions are never gonna be perfect. You're never gonna have exactly the right equipment, have enough money to purchase everything that you want from scratch. The climate, the weather, there's always gonna be something that you have to consider, and putting everything on hold because it's rainy outside, so you can't do anything. It doesn't mean you can't do your planning. And I want to encourage you that if you've got a passion or an idea that you want to pursue, go for it. Don't let obstacles that can be solved keep you from getting the time in, getting the work in, to get you where you want to be. As in anything in life, working around problems and solving them, it's the only way to move forward. So if you're gonna fail in a way that's gonna put you better off knowledge wise, experience wise, equipment wise. That failing forward is so valuable. Don't plan to fail. I'm not saying don't do proper planning. When you are faced with a challenge, embrace it. Solving the problems in your garden, that's actually one of the most important things for you to learn, because it's gonna give you experience in seeing things. Because most of the knowledge and experience that you accumulate through fixing these problems are actually gonna be what's gonna carry you forward. Remember, for every day that you postpone or set the date back, it's time that you lose that you cannot get back. Especially if you postpone and set your dates back without doing something productive in the place of that, so that you can eventually get to your end goal. So all I want to say is just get going. It's gonna save you time, it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna share with you some of the mistakes I have made so that you do not make the same mistakes. You will be able to find a solution for 99% of the problems out there on YouTube with someone else that has got the solution for that. So tap into the wealth of experience out there on the web, on YouTube. So now that we've gotten the speeches type stuff out of the way, we're gonna dive a bit more into the practical side of the list. The second thing is plan your layout. What I mean by planning your layout is go out, walk in the garden or the canvas for the garden, and try and see how you want the setup to look, because you want to have it look pretty, you want it to be presentable, you want to be proud of it. So you gonna have to spend some time in deciding where you're gonna position what, so that the garden or the veggie patch that you're gonna grow, it's gonna be pleasing to the eye. You don't want to start something that you're gonna be ashamed of showing people. You want to have a look at what type of plants will be better suited in specific parts of your garden, which sections are more shaded, which ones get more sunlight, which ones only get sunlight for a certain period of the day. You have to include that into your planning for where you're going to locate your beds as well, because at the end of the day you want to have the ideal growing conditions, or as close to the ideal growing conditions for that specific plant that you want to grow. It doesn't sound like moving a plant 10 meters can make a difference, but if it's 10 meters into a shaded area, it is gonna make a big difference. So that's things you have to include into your planning. Another big thing is not just the growing space. Don't zone out on just the growing space. You will need walkways. You will need to move equipment through there. You will need to mow the lawn. You will need to do practical things when you're harvesting your produce that you've grown. Make sure that you plan your walkways together with your layout. So these type of projects you'll have to divide into long-term goals and short-term goals, and it's also gonna depend on what you have, what tools you have available to you to use at this very moment. Also, another thing that's gonna be a big part of your planning is, are you gonna do raised beds? Are you gonna do rows? Are you gonna do it in a greenhouse? Or are you gonna just cover your entire backyard in shade net like I have done? A very, very, very important point for me is drainage. I put no steps in place for rainy weather and the drainage, and with my clay swale, that is a very, very big problem. Make sure that if you are in a rainy area that gets a lot of rain, or you have a soil type that doesn't like moisture, that you have a way to route the excess water so that you do not create yourself headaches. Working in soggy, wet clay soil is the biggest heartbreak story of your life as a gardener. There's probably other things. For me, that was my struggle, and that's one of the things I wished from the very first start of this project that I kept in mind, is the drainage. The third mistake is not growing the food that you actually eat. A lot of beginner gardeners, when they start growing, they actually grow food they've never eaten before, thinking they'll all of a sudden start using this, and most of the time you end up growing produce that go to waste. It's very important to just plant the food that you enjoy and the food that you want to eat. It's gonna get you more excited about your garden projects. It's gonna help you be more dedicated towards the weeding and some of the more labor intensive work in your garden. Do you just want to supplement the things that you already eat? Gonna use store-bought vegetables and supplement with some specific things that you are going to grow? Or do you want to eventually supply all your food needs from your own garden? But that's gonna have its own set of challenges as well, because some things will be needed to be pickled. You'll need to plan for storage for crops. So that it's quite a big project on its own, and you need the entire subject, a video dedicated to handling just that process. Plan to use your produce. It will often happen that you actually grow your own food, and then the meals you now cook, you don't use your own ingredients. So that's sort of defeating the purpose of growing your own food if you don't consume your own food. Starting going all out and then not being able to get to the grooming part where you have to do the weeding, you have to train the plants, you need to start your new seedlings for the new season or for the new batch that you after you harvest. Those things take time, and if you start too big from the start, it's very easy to crash and burn and not enjoy the process, and you will end up killing your gardening project before you get into it, because the grass is always growing into your beds, or you're struggling with pests and you don't know how to handle it. These are things that you need to think about and plan for beforehand. But it all starts with having a manageable workload for yourself, so that you don't corrupt your own feelings toward your garden. That's supposed to give you lots of pleasure, but these things can suck the joy out of it if you do not plan ahead for that. The fifth mistake is not having a de-weeding plan and schedule. This is probably one of the most important points if you are a new gardener or you're starting new beds. If you leave your weeds, they will take over, and it's no fun at all. Have procedures in place to manage the weeds. Decide whether you're going to be using mulch or whether you're going to be using cardboard to shade out the weeds. Have a tilling program, but have a set weeding program and days that you dedicate to de-weeding. At some point it's going to get better, but you have to get through that initial push if you're just starting out. And if you don't do it from the start, it's going to ruin the experience completely. So the sixth mistake is actually quite a big one, is not knowing when to plant and what to plant for what season. I see a lot of people planting things at completely the wrong time of year, and it's failing, and they're thinking they don't have green fingers, why can't they get these plants to grow? And the fact is they're just growing the wrong plants at the wrong time of year. Make sure you know what type of food you want to eat that is available in that specific season that you are able to grow in. Another big mistake is not starting your seedlings correctly. It can be something small like having dirty compost with lots of solid pieces of bark and mulch still inside. and using that for your seedling trays, or it can be because you leaving your seedlings too long in the grow trays, and they start to get stressed and it stunts their growth. Uh, Starting your seedlings is very, very important, and knowing how to get into your routine of cycling your plants, especially with something like your salads that you need to replant that are single harvest plants. um, my number one recommendation is when starting out your vegetable garden would be to actually grow plants that you can plant once and harvest off of them for quite some time. It's gonna give you time to sort out some things while you get all your gardening tools and procedures dialed in so that your setup can run smoothly. The eighth mistake is not actually taking the time to go look at your soil and actually see what your soil is like and what you can do to improve your soil and what you need to do to improve your soil, as well as watering. If you don't have a close look at your soil, you will probably not know how to water it correctly. Are you over watering? Are you under watering? Is the topsoil drying out faster than your bottom soil? It's also gonna detect which plants are gonna be best suited to start off with until you've broken up your soil. In my instances, I've got very, very heavy clay soil, and that's a big factor in how I plant at the moment. The ninth mistake is not spacing your plants properly. Very, very often I see plants spaced too densely, because you want to get the most out of your grow space, but the fact is sunlight, the amount of sunlight those plants get is so important, and if you don't do your spacing correctly, you are gonna have some issues. There are times where you can push the limits and do it more compactly, but that's one of the things that's gonna influence your production significantly if you don't have your spacing correctly. So know which plants you are going to plant and know how to plant them. So that's it, guys. Those are my 10 points on mistakes to avoid when starting your garden. It's mistakes that I have made, it's mistakes that have frustrated me, and I thought I'd share them with you just to help you guys out and hope that it can save some of you some time. Thank you for watching up until now, and on to the next one.